Now that we have built the model, let's plot it. So in this case, for Seaborn plots, we just use kind equals reg parameter, and we actually get the trend line or the regression line along with it. Now, something else that I wanted to discuss along with it is hypothesis testing and p-values. Let's look into those things. Generally speaking, you start with a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis that is opposite to the null. Then you check whether the data supports rejecting the null hypothesis or failing to reject the null hypothesis. Note that failing to reject the null is not the same as accepting the null hypothesis. The alternative hypothesis may indeed be true, except that you just don't have enough data to show that. Now, as it relates to model coefficients, here is the conventional hypothesis test for regression. So the null hypothesis for regression says that there is no relationship between TV ads and sales, and thus it makes an assumption that beta 1 equals 0. The alternative hypothesis is the exact opposite, and it says there is a relationship between TV ads and sales, and thus beta 1 is not equal to 0. And basically we want to conduct a test that would either confirm or reject the null hypothesis. Now, how do we do that? Intuitively, we reject the null and thus believe the alternative if the 95% confidence interval does not include 0. Conversely, the p-value represents the probability that the coefficient is actually 0. So if we want to pluck out the p-values, we can do that in stats models by using the model object with the .p-values attribute. So we see that for the intercept, we have a very tiny value, and so is the case for TV as well. A p-value which is less than 0.05 is one way to decide whether there is likely a relationship between the feature and the response. Again, using 0.05 as a benchmark or as the cutoff is just a convention, and it varies from industry to industry. In this case, the p-value for TV is far less than 0.05, and so we believe that there is a relationship between TV ads and sales, and so we say that we are rejecting the null hypothesis and embracing the alternative hypothesis. Note that we generally ignore the p-value for the intercept.